Hello everyone and welcome back to another Minecraft update video. This is Snapshot 20w17a and here on the blog post on minecraft.net it says this week's snapshot brings you some tweaks, bug fixes and technical changes. Now let's speculate for a moment here. With no new features, this could mean we're moving into the final phase of development and 1.16 could be around the corner. There is also this indication that development is wrapping up, a survey. Mojang want to hear in detail what you think about this update. And the link on the blog sends you to this website where you can give them all sorts of feedback, and it goes into quite a lot of detail, as you can see. And so for those two reasons, I believe we're in the final phase of development now, and this snapshot actually has tons of really interesting stuff that's getting added. 1.16 is going to be one heck of an update, right? And also I'm going to be covering in this video some things that I missed in the previous couple of snapshots. One of them, for example, is magma cubes. Now I saw magma cubes spawning in the Bastion remains and I thought that was just a feature of them, but it turns out there is actually a monster spawner down here. And I can't remember the last time they added a new one of these in, but this is for the magma cube. It is also held up by the chain block, which we saw in last week's snapshot. And if you've missed any of the snapshot videos covering the new features, changes and additions to 1.16, there'll be a link in the description box to a playlist with all the videos from this update in, so you can keep yourself informed. So first off, we have some new menus and features. When you click on single player and you haven't created a world yet, you jump straight into the create new world screen. And you'll notice that there are some additional buttons here. That's because the game rules button has been added, and when we go inside you can see a whole bunch of options. Now these are not new things, these are actually the game rules that you tweak and change through commands inside of the game. Now you're going to be able to come in here, you're going to be able to toggle things on and off before you create your world, and also change the numbers of certain values as well. And when you hover over the button you get this tooltip, so it tells you the actual game rule you're changing, whereas the button is a little bit more descriptive of what's going on. We have another new feature inside of a menu. If you go into video settings, down to the bottom there is entity distance. This goes from 50 to 500% in increments of 25, and by default it's on 100. Now I can only really tell you what this does between 100 and 50. So let's first of all go to 50%. You can see that there are entities here in the world. I'm going to make it a little easier to see them by making them glow. And as we back away here, they start to disappear even though the blocks in the world haven't disappeared yet. And that's because we've set this to 50%. So when we're 50% of that distance, they're going to disappear. What's weird though is if you were to set this above, like, all the way up to 500, it doesn't make any difference, because once the chunks become unloaded, the entities are unloaded with them. So when you're seeing the entities unloaded there, that's because the chunks are being unloaded. So I don't really know what the purpose of this is going above 100%. And if that didn't make any sense to you, it's about what distance the entities in the world are rendered at, and from my experimentation, that percentage is tied to your render distance. Now let's get through some changes in this update. Loot tables have been tweaked. If you saw the last video, we went through everything in detail. This time I'm going to give you a brief overview. So here in the Bastion bridge, you can now get a damaged randomly enchanted crossbow, and the spectral arrows were tweaked so less of them are found. In the Bastion Hoglin stable, the weight values of the tools and items up the top here have been greatly changed. It's now harder to get these netherite tools, and it's far more common to find some gold blocks. In Bastion Other, it's less likely to get netherite scrap and ancient debris as their weight values have been changed. And in this category here, there's actually been added a empty slot with a very high weight value, so you're now less likely to get any of these items. And in Bastion Treasure, you now have 1 to 2 rolls of this category right here, but the big change is you can't get any of these tools as netherite. They will now be diamond tools and armor. The smithing table UI has been improved, but if you ask me, this is still a lot to be desired. I mean, just the hammer and the outline of the ingot, yeah, not too much going on there. The ruined portals that we saw introduced to both the overworld and the nether in the last snapshot, these are now reported to spawn less frequently in your world, as they were rather common. And having done a little bit of rudimentary testing, I would say they do feel kind of similarly spaced out in the world, so maybe this isn't too drastic of a change. And the Soulfire Lantern and Soulfire Torch have now simply been renamed to Soul Lantern and Soul Torch. Banners and pressure plates can now be placed on top of walls and turn them into wall posts, just like, for example, a torch or string would do. This is also a tag inside of a game, so it can be customized and you can add other blocks to this list. There have also been some other new tags added in the last couple of snapshots. There's one for campfire blocks and guarded by piglins. So here you can see a list of the things that piglins will actually guard. There have also been item tags added for stone tools and for the furnace materials. They both have separate tags which simply include cobble and blackstone. So if you're customizing, you can basically add materials in that are acceptable for these type of items. And the same way in which you craft a soul campfire, there is a tag for soulfire based blocks, which includes these two. So now let's get into the technical changes in this snapshot. Block storage format in chunks slightly changed to speed up various tasks like rendering, pathfinding and world generation. That sounds all good, but I don't really get the ins and outs of what's going on here. However, they do explain it in more detail. And there were also some changes to the world save format. Again, the details are in the blog post. So in this game, there is something known as attributes. They've been around for a long time, but now with this snapshot, you're going to be able to interact with them directly from a command because one called /attribute has been added. And so with that, I can create commands that change the attributes of certain entities. For example, myself, I'm changing the amount of hearts that I have down the bottom of the screen there. And we can also target other entities as well, which reminds me I've got to spawn it in first. So I will now give this pig speed. Maybe if I give it a punch, yep. Okay, see, it's got a ridiculous amount of speed, and it's going crazy. So there are a whole bunch of attributes, for example, health, knockback resistance, speed, flying speed, attack damage. These are all of them right here that the command can interact with. And the command allows you to query these attributes so you can find out their values, as well as add, remove them, and modify the values. And over here on the blog post, you can see they give quite a few examples of how you can use this command to interact with the attributes. And again, if you want to go check that out, link to the article is in the description box below. Next up, changes to fonts and hover tooltips that appear in chat. So first of all, the amount of colours that are supported has been expanded. It now does RGB, which I think goes up to several million, whereas it used to only support 16 colours. Hover tooltips can now show items, so this right here is a beacon. This one I actually have to paste into chat to use it, but it shows us what we're holding. So it's literally looking at me and seeing what I'm holding, and then you can see that tooltip in chat. This one over here gives you information about the entity, so it can interact with entities as well, and that's me. So a big thanks to Plagiatus and Sir Bennett for sharing these commands with me so I can show all of you. This last one they've sent me, I think that's supposed to be my face, my traditional Asuma skin face right there. And jumping back over to the blog post, you'll see that there's a few more things this supports as well. There's also going to be support for custom fonts and Unicode as well. And I've got a feeling that we might see emojis added in the future, although that's just me speculating. Another place you're going to see a change with the fonts is just inside of the search here. You can see the category line, the blue text is now bold. Let's now move on to the bug fixes, as there's a couple here that are really fascinating. A very old one, something I never actually considered a bug. When you take the item out here, you'll get the XP. If you break the furnace, you won't. But as we know, these now actually store XP. So if you smelt tons and tons of items, then you store a lot of XP in it. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and break this furnace. And look at that, the XP drops. That's really cool. Another really old and annoying bug, the sort you'll never think you'd see fixed, is in creative mode flying downwards through vines. No longer do you get caught on the vine block. This is the same for ladders as well. It's just one of those little things, you know, and it's been fixed. And this right here is simply wonderful. Another bug fix. So a hostile mob holding a lodestone compass, the compass wouldn't actually point at the lodestone, but as this guy goes around, you can see it updates and it points towards it. There was also a bug with tamed parrots where you right click on them to make them sit and stand, and so that means you couldn't use a name tag on them unless they were flying, but now you'll be able to rename them. And that's all of our bug fixes. Of course there were more. For example, a baby hoglin would have the same attack damage as an adult hoglin, which it shouldn't, and there were loads of other minor tweaks and changes and tidy ups, and I'm not going to cover those in this video. And now for some things that I missed from the last snapshot. So the texture of these two blocks had changed. We got the quartz bricks and the chiseled nether bricks. So this used to have like the piglin face, and now it's got more of a skeletal face to it. And this one's had an additional, it's had its line changed, hasn't it? So it used to have a line here in the middle and none on the edges, and now it's got two lines at the bottom. As you might suspect, the new music disc gives out a redstone signal. This is something I missed last time around, and the signal strength is 13, and that's because it's the 13th record to be added. There is also now a music disc drop creeper tag. This means that you could add things to that list if you want to customize the game, so when a skeleton kills a creeper, you have control over what it drops. I also forgot to mention that inside the Bastion remains, you can find nether wart and soul sand patches like this. You can also use invisibility potions to open a chest, as long as there isn't a piglin too nearby. You can also use a saddle in a dispenser to equip a strider with a saddle. I also have the numbers on composting, so sprouts and vines, they have a 50% chance, and all of these items down here, the roots, the nether warts, the fungus, they have an 65% chance, and the nether and the warped blocks, they have an 85% chance. And so with all of that said and done, we're at the end of this snapshot video. If you've enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like. As always, thank you for supporting the videos. Make sure you subscribe to catch future snapshots and update videos, and I guess I'll see you next week, hopefully with another one. Ciao for now. Bye bye.